We are back, noswaith dda. Good evening to you all. Welcome back to the post-draft edition of the NFL Cymru podcast. Only two of us this evening. Johan is taking a break. He played some snaps for the South Wales Warriors on Sunday. They won handsomely in the end, so they are 2-0. Just, that's good to know, just to put that out there. Johan will be joining us very, very shortly to give his perspective on how the Eagles did in the draft, and like they've done, over the last couple of years, especially under Howie, they came up trumps, especially in the first round. And we'll see just at the end. We're gonna leave around 5-10 minutes at the end of this podcast for myself and Guto to review. To give our opinions on our franchise and on our teams, the Falcons and the Dolphins, to see, maybe to give them a grade, maybe if a certain player pops out, were there any trades involved? Hint, hint, maybe there might have been. We'll get to that very, very shortly. However, Guto, noswaith dda. How are you?
Noswaith dda, David. I'm good, thank you. Took me a while to catch up on everything over the weekend. I was away in Milan. So, great weekend, lovely, beautiful city, very, very good. I'd recommend anyone to go there. But I've caught up on what I needed to be caught up on during the weekend. There's been some dramas, let's just say, so we're here to talk about it.
Goodness me. I mean, we're going to just leave the draft there for a second. We will come to it very, very shortly. However, I thought we'd start this pod by addressing the news about Louis Rees-Zammit that came out yesterday, and immediately I'm not sure what happened in your mind when you saw the news that came out. I think it was yesterday, following Louis Rees-Zammit's status with his current team, the Jacksonville Jaguars. I immediately heard the British and the Welsh media, setting those alarm bells. What on earth does this mean? Going to the extremes of this is ultra positive or this is the worst news ever. Let's kind of try and meet in the middle, because ultimately we were just chatting. It doesn't actually mean much. Nothing's going to change until OTAs, until Zammit will be back with the team. They'll have their training camp in July, I believe. Training camp starts.
Yeah.
And then we'll see, there's a new regime in Jacksonville. So basically, because he was an international player, he was a part of the IPP, the International Player Pathway, even, you get an exempment on your roster. So basically, long story short, Zammit was part of the Jacksonville Jaguars practice squad last year, which meant he was one of 16 individuals. But because he's been designated as an international player, that means that he's exempt, which means that he will be the 17th player, and the Jacksonville Jaguars can draft, or they can sign 16 of the players to put on their practice squad. Now then, this doesn't mean that Zammit can't make his way onto the 53. Obviously, that would be ideal for all of us. So just the technicalities of if he's once again set up on the practice squad, it means that he can be elevated 3 times during the regular season, or he can be elevated to the 53-man roster. So basically, you could see it as there's some more security for himself. Obviously, I've said there's a new regime in Jacksonville. Liam Cohen could potentially kind of like the way that he looks. Is he going to be a wide receiver now that he's changed? He's transitioned from running back. Does this mean that he's going to be having more opportunities as a returner, which we've talked about in the past? And maybe it kind of stops other teams from nabbing him as well, from taking him from the Jacksonville roster. So basically, in a nutshell, I think it's a positive move, because clearly this is a move that Jacksonville wouldn't have made, Guto. I'm not sure what you think, if they weren't intrigued by his skill set and what he can offer.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. It's not the end of the world at the end. Obviously, there was a lot of some negative reports out there. Some comments I've read, people thinking, "Oh, his NFL career is already over." This and that. We've heard it all before. So there's nothing to panic about, nothing to worry about. We've got a good few months. He's got a few months to hone his skills, learn some more plays, and etc. So no, he's in a good place, and even if he does end up on the practice squad, then that's pretty good for him as well. He's got another season in the practice squad, which can only improve him even more. So it's a positive move, I think, and it's just a title in the end, isn't it? So
Yeah.
it's not a big deal.
Exactly. So there we are. We've put that aside, and like we see that, I don't think anything, like I said before, is going to change drastically before the start of OTAs in July. So we'll wait until then, and Zammit will prepare himself physically and mentally. Like we said, he's going to be learning a new playbook under the new head coach, new OC. So we'll see. At least everyone is starting from the same kind of place. Where he was trying to catch up maybe with other players last year. But anyway, Jacksonville made a splash in the draft, didn't they? So we move on to the draft. So obviously we're not going to cover the whole draft. Obviously, like we said, we're going to keep the last 5 or 10 minutes to concentrate on the Falcons and the Dolphins. But we thought we'd kind of give you the highlights of the draft. What were some of the big news regarding some of the players that were taken earlier, some of the prospects? Were there any crazy trade-ups, trade-downs? And obviously we'll definitely touch on the news of what happened with Shedeur Sanders as well, because that was, well, what a drama that was as well. That has been portrayed... I don't know, it's kind of like, it's split opinion in the media. Some say that he deserves it because of his arrogance and because of his privileged background, maybe the fact that he's the son of Deion Sanders and so on and so forth, and he's been kind of babied into this career, and he's got a reality series and all that. But then there's another part of the media says that this is kind of like they kind of turned it political, which has intrigued me. A lot of people have said that's what's happened to Shedeur is Colin Kaepernick Part 2. That a lot of these mainly white NFL owners have kind of done this as a slap on the wrist to Shedeur, to say, we will not take a character like yourself on to be our franchise quarterback, which I thought was a really, really interesting move on it as well. I don't think it's as political as what happened with Colin Kaepernick a few years ago with the whole thing about racism and things like that. And obviously he's been blacklisted from the NFL for the last 5 years, and he's still trying to take his but in our mock draft, Guto, in what world did we imagine? I think you put Shedeur third, didn't you?
I had the Cleveland Browns taking Shedeur in the first round. So after all the slander I got from you and Johan, I was technically correct. So once I saw that, I was just laughing. It had to be the Browns. They already got another quarterback though, so they drafted 2 quarterbacks in the end, which I thought was very interesting. So, but so the whole situation with Sanders, obviously with the prank phone call as well.
Yes.
Yeah, it turned into a soap opera, didn't it, in the end? So, and it just had to include the Falcons, didn't it? So, Jeff Ulbricht's our DC, his son did a prank phone call, pretending to be from the New Orleans Saints, pretending to obviously say you've been drafted to the Saints. So, you obviously know what's going to go through Sanders' mind. He's going to celebrate it, but it's just a mad situation. And the Falcons and Jeff Ulbricht, they've been fined heavily for it. $350K to be precise, actually, which obviously for them isn't a lot of money, but it's a big deal. And it was Ulbricht's son, Jack Ulbricht, who he's apologised, he's done this and that, he's had a statement, but at the end of the day, you don't do that, do you?
No, it's just like like you said, the lack of manners, and it's for all of these players to be drafted in the first round. It's your ultimate dream, isn't it? It's such an emotional life moment to celebrate, either with your family at home or if you're actually at the draft appearing itself. So Jeff Ulbricht's son. So did he actually steal? I think he stole it from a laptop. Is that right?
From a laptop or an iPad. I don't know where it was. I don't know why the Falcons were even looking at his phone number, to be quite honest
Yeah.
with you. So, but yeah, apparently he's done this before. That's why
Really?
I've read something that he's done this prank before, or he's a bit of a troublemaker and everything. So,
Yeah.
it's probably just his character. But obviously, the Falcons and Jeff, they've been fined heavily for it. So, and maybe rightly so. So
Yeah.
it's one of them situations.
Well, put it this way,
Even
Guitar.
with pardon me, the character of Shadir Sanders, the way he acts, his arrogance, I don't think to me, I wasn't pleased with it, to be honest.
Yeah. No, it didn't sit well with me either. And
No,
let's put it this way. I mean, even if Jeff Ulbricht's son wanted to get a job in the NFL, he's never going to be employed
no,
in the NFL. No,
absolutely
no, no chance.
no.
And another thing that we were talking about yesterday as well, Gito, apparently, another incident happened with the third pick taken in the draft, which was Abdul Carter, the defensive end from Penn State. Apparently, he got prank called as well. I can't remember by. I think even more bizarre. He got prank called by the eventual team that drafted him,
Oh,
but it was a different individual. I think I got that right because I definitely saw a tweet about that came out yesterday. But apparently, that Abdul Carter had a prank call, and I'm
yeah,
like, how are these people? How first of all, how are they getting these
yeah,
phone numbers? Where are they getting these phone numbers from? And how is it so easy for them to access? And
yeah.
it's kind of crazy, really, isn't it?
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, someone's been very, very irresponsible with
Yeah,
leaving the numbers out there. So
yeah.
it's a stupid situation, to be honest with you.
So there we are. Obviously the story of the whole draft over the 3 days was the drama around the fall of Shedeur Sanders and the fact that he was taken in the fifth round,
Fifth
I
round.
believe,
Yeah.
by the Cleveland Browns, which was highly ironic. Did you say? Did you happen to see someone pulled up a quote that that Shedeur's dad, Dion, excuse me, said in a press conference? He said if Shedeur were to be drafted by the Cleveland Browns, that he should pull an Eli Manning. So he would refuse to go to that franchise, and he should go to someone, and he would basically, he would try and get a trade from another team. How ironic that in the fifth round that he was drafted by the Cleveland Browns as well.
Yeah. Yeah, crazy. And I still think they drafted another one as well, Dylan Gabriel, the round before.
Dylan
So
Gabriel, yeah. So they've got Shedeur, Dylan Gabriel, Joe Flacco,
Joe Flacco, yeah,
and they've got someone else. Have they got Kenny Pickett as well? Is Kenny Pickett their fourth?
possibly. I believe so. Yeah, so
So they've got
it's quite a
yeah.
massive QB room, isn't it? So yeah,
Do you know what, Guitar? I think in training camp, this is if you'd ask me who the favourite is to start, I'd definitely put Flacco is the favourite to start because ultimately 2 seasons ago, out of nowhere, he took them to the playoffs and he played lights out even as a 40-year-old. So I think with Shedeur, this is either gonna put a rocket up his backside and he's gonna fight for that backup job, or this is gonna go haywire and
yeah.
who knows, he might be released at the end of OTAs and he might be looking for another team.
Exactly. Interesting fact about Shadir Sanders. Actually, he has the top selling jersey from the draft in the NFL. So he's the number one. That's not really.
Not surprised.
Yeah, yeah. But for a fifth rounder to be the number one selling jersey is quite crazy.
It's
But
wild, isn't
the
it?
character of Shadir Sanders, he must have some fans at least. So
Yeah.
there we go.
Yeah. Do you know what? Apparently, in the fifth round, the Dolphins had talks amongst the GM and the head coach and the owner. Should they take Shedeur Sanders? He eventually went 2 picks later, but ultimately they decided not to, and they got a defensive tackle, which I'm glad that they did.
Yeah.
However, I just can't. I'm just glad because can you imagine Shedeur Sanders down in a market like Miami, where the entertainment lifestyle is just it. Do you know what? It's happened to some players in the past. You know, young rookies just get caught up in the game. They don't they don't go home and study the playbook. They don't look after their bodies and things like that. I just thought that that would have been an absolute train wreck if he would have gone to Miami. So I'm guess, you know, that's another kind of crisis averted there as well. So eventually he's gone to Cleveland. So I just thought that was worth noting as well.
Yeah, you did end up drafting a quarterback at 7, didn't you?
We did.
Quinn Ewers.
Quinn Ewers out of Texas, which was yeah. I think it was a bit of a nothing pick towards the seventh round. I think obviously they're hoping that he would be their backup because we've only signed Zach Wilson on a 1-year contract. Anyway, we'll get to the Dolphins later on, Guto. Tell me, what apart from Shadir Sanders, what was the highlight of the draft for you outside of the Falcons, obviously?
What I really like, and if I was the Falcons, if I was the Panthers, if I was the Saints, I'd be worried. I really like what the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have done. They drafted a really good wide receiver. If I've got the name right here, bear with just 2 seconds. Emeka Egbuka. Just looking at that wide receiver room now, we've got Egbuka. You've got the other two as well, Chris Godwin and Mike Evans. You know, that 3 wide receiver is ridiculous. Yeah. So for some reason that really stood out for me. That pick, I wasn't expecting them to go for a wide receiver. So yeah, that really stood out for me, and I'm kind of glad, and I will talk about the Falcons in a moment, but I'm glad we've gone for more defensive players in this one, because I would be worried going up against the Bucks and those 3 wide receivers. I'm a really big fan of that.
What's your opinion on Jacksonville's moving up from 5 to 2 to grab Travis Hunter?
Interesting.
Did they overpay in terms of picks for him, do you reckon? Or do you think he is that talented? Obviously he's a dual player, and it'll be interesting to see if he's going to be mainly a wide receiver or a cornerback. Do you think that they kind of gave up too much because they gave up a first next year, I believe?
Yeah, it's a big risk trading for a first round for next year. I do think the Browns have missed out on an excellent player, however. I'm a big fan. So, but yeah, it's a big risk, and I think especially this season is a make or break season for Trevor Lawrence and the Jacksonville Jaguars. He was once called like the next big thing, the next best quarterback. He had a really good a couple of seasons ago. They made the playoffs. Obviously, I remember that game against the Chargers, that great comeback. But the last season, so it hasn't been brilliant at all. It looks like it's been declining as well. So that's why they were so low in the draft. It's a big risk with what they traded and what they overpaid, but they've got an excellent player now in Travis Hunter who can play 2 positions. They're probably going to use him as a wide receiver, but player-wise, an excellent pick for me. And I've seen some mixed comments as well. It is a bit of a risk, but obviously, I think this season is a make or break season for them.
100% agree. As an athlete, Travis Hunter is probably one of the most freakish athletes that the NFL has ever seen. Obviously, because he's a dual player, and I think we were talking, ironically, the last player to do this in the NFL was Deion Sanders himself. I've just seen clips of him put it, on social media of him just playing basketball. He's just such a natural, talented athlete, freak of an athlete. Like I said, my only concern is that he's a little bit on the light side. So is he going to endure some injuries early on? Because I think he's going to have to be on a snap count. Yeah. Obviously, he can't play full snaps as a wide receiver and as a cornerback as well. So it's going to be really interesting how the Jaguars are going to how they're going to use him. Obviously, they're going to try and put him out there as much as they can. You were talking about the Buccaneers have a really, really solid wide receiver room. Well, probably one of the standouts last year, apart from in terms of rookie wide receivers, apart from Malik Neighbors in New York Giants. Brian Thomas Jr. What an incredible season he had as well, a rookie season. So putting Hunter with him, like you said, make or break season for Trevor Lawrence. He's out of excuses now. I know he suffered a lot with injuries last year. He got concussed, didn't he? And I felt bad for him in his rookie season. He was put into the worst situation under a ridiculous coach that I can't. Urban Meyer. He came from Ohio State, and all the drama that went down with him. He got fired halfway through the season. So there is a way for, even though the Jags have given him a max contract, there is a way out of that contract, I believe, after next year. So, like you said, this is going to be. We've given you the weaponry.
Yeah.
Show us what you can do. So yeah, like you said, it's going to be a fantastic watch to see a player like Travis Hunter in the NFL. Anyway, I just hope that he isn't overhyped and that he isn't overused and that kind of like he burns out, a little bit too soon. But they've got to exploit his talents anyway. So yeah, and obviously where does Zammit fit into that as a receiver 6, 7, whatever? Is he going to be a returner? We will wait and see, obviously.
Yeah.
So that was Travis Hunter. So obviously Cleveland dropped to 5th, the 5th pick, and they grabbed Mason Graham out of Michigan, supposedly one of the best interior defensive linemen in the draft. Apparently Cleveland liked his fit and his personality. Apparently, I've seen a few videos of him literally shoving offensive linemen aside as if they weren't there. So pairing him with Myles Garrett is quite beast mode of a defensive line, I have to say.
Yeah.
My only concern about Cleveland is I don't know if they've got enough offensively. Wide receiver wise, I thought they would have targeted a little bit more because obviously they've lost. Elijah Moore has just signed a 1-year deal with Buffalo. So yeah, they're kind of, apart from Jerry Jeudy really, which was actually, that turned out to be a really, really good trade for them. He's going to need more help in terms of Cleveland. Anything else that stood out to you, Guto, in terms of the draft before we delve into the Falcons?
I think we should talk about a particular running back in Ashton Jeanty for the Raiders. I think he is an outstanding running back. I think he'll be just as good, if not, on the same level as, I don't want to say Bijan Robinson, he's my favourite player, but, Saquon Barkley maybe in the next few years, who knows? I think it was pretty clear that the Raiders were going for him, and they got him. So yeah, that's a really good pick for the Raiders. They've got a fantastic player there.
Indeed. My only concern is how good is the O-line?
Yeah.
Because even if they get an average O-line, Ashton Jeanty has been he's been hyped up as one of the best prospects, running back prospects, apart from, like you said, Saquon. But going back all the way to the likes of one of my favourite players of all time, Adrian Peterson. And a lot of people have said that he's got Barry Sanders traits, which is a lot of pressure for an individual. He came from Boise State as well, which isn't the biggest college team. So yeah, he's definitely going to be a problem. And I can't wait to watch him. Actually, his college tape just looks absolutely sublime. His vision, his balance, he's got speed, he's got agility. He's a born runner, so I can't wait to watch him. Obviously, like I said, that was a solid pick. Another one, just before you go into the Falcons quickly, Guto, I was kind of surprised that tight end Tyler, he went to the Colts eventually, 14th. What's the second name? Tyler Warren. Tyler Warren. So he wasn't the first tight end to come off the board. Cortland Loveland was the first tight end that went to Chicago at number 10. Everyone had been drafting or mock drafting Tyler Warren to go not six, 7 or 8 even in the top 10. And it was interesting to see Cortland Loveland going going to the at 10 to the Chicago Bears. Again, I think that's a very sensible pick for the Bears. Put him with Cole Kmet. He's a good receiving tight end, and he can block as well. So Chicago are definitely going to be better offensive side of the ball. Like we said, they've beefed up their offensive line as well. So I thought that was a really, really interesting pick. Like I said, Tyler Warren eventually went to 14 to the Indianapolis Colts, and I think they were targeting Loveland, I believe, as a tight end anyway. So they probably ended up getting Tyler Warren, probably the player that they wanted, but maybe thought that they'd never be able to grasp. So kind of that's fallen into their laps. So yeah, a need another weapon for Anthony Richardson. Although there's going to be a QB battle in Indianapolis, of course, because Daniel Jones is the other one.
Yeah,
it's going to be Anthony Richardson and Daniel Jones. Can't wait for that.
Interesting.
Shall we talk some Atlanta Falcons?
Let's go for it. Yeah,
I give you the stage. Tell me. Obviously, you've already said that it was a defense-heavy draft. That's what you were hoping for.
Yeah.
Are you satisfied with what the Falcons have done?
So the Falcons started off the draft. I think we were second or third team with the lowest number of picks. We only ended up with five picks. I think the Vikings were the lowest. I think I'm not 100% sure on that, but we were bottom 3 on number of picks that we had. But we picked up Jalen Walker and James Pierce Jr. in the first round. I was really pleased with that. I was not expecting that. I was not expecting us to do a trade with the Rams. A little bit of the same situation with the Jaguars. We traded a first round pick for next year as well, which is also, it is a risk, right? Obviously. But in terms of the picks itself, Xavier Watts from Notre Dame, Billy Bowman Jr., 2 safeties. So we ended up with 2 edges, pretty much, a safety and a tackle. So we filled the gaps that we needed, I think. Defensively, the last few seasons, we've not been great. We've got the weapons offensively. Defense, we're always let down. So we've picked some players here that I believe that could be starters, 100%. So overall, with the picks that we had, with the options that we had, I'm quite pleased. Just a little bit worried with, hopefully we'll have a decent season next season, so that first round pick that we've traded away isn't going to be too much of a trouble for us. So, but at the end of the day, if I was giving it a rating, I'd give it a B+ or an A-. So I think we've done as good as what we could with the picks that we had and the number of picks that we had as well.
Like you said, obviously you were ready to go off on the offensive side of the ball. Extremely talented backline you've got there, to be fair.
Yeah.
My only concern is, obviously you've beefed up the defense and you needed to. Do you think so you traded back into the later stages of the first round? Obviously you gave away your first round pick. Who did you pick? Sorry, who was the pick that you got?
The second pick
was your second one?
James Pierce Jr.
Which he's an edge rusher.
An edge rusher, yeah.
Okay, so obviously the only thing is, obviously, if you're a Falcons fan, is it kind of unfair now that he's going to have maybe a little bit more pressure because you've traded away your first round pick, that he has to be an immediate contributor. And then again, but the only other thing as well is, do you think that you've got enough depth? God forbid if one of your top wide receivers were to get injured during the season.
That's the only other thing I was a little bit surprised. Well, not too surprised, to be honest. I was maybe expecting a wide receiver towards the end of the draft, maybe. As of today, or yesterday actually, they've given the fifth year for Drake London, so yes. That's a positive for us. But yeah, the wide receiver room, we've left a couple. We've decided to leave a couple out of there. So maybe the wide receiver room is a little bit tight at the moment. But overall, like I said, James Pierce, a lot of pressure's on him now. So he was probably one of the best in that position in the draft. I think a lot of people had him in top 15, definitely first rounder. So I wasn't expecting the trade, to be quite honest with you.
Yeah.
So it was a bit of a shock when I found out. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I think you are right. The pressure will be on him since we traded for him. So, but I think we'll be just okay. I think.
Yeah.
I'm not too nervous about it at this moment in time, anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. The only thing, I mean, obviously you can't fault the trade if the Falcons, if the player that you got, if that's your guy, and you're willing to trade up for him, then you've got to commit to it, really. So there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And obviously it seems to me that you've got a really good you got a really good deal there, getting him, if he was a top 15 pick, getting him towards the end of the first round, late 20s. That's good dealing as well. So obviously it's hard to tell until everyone's on the field in July to see how everything works. So yeah, sounds like you're relatively happy with the Falcons. That's really good to hear.
Apart from the drama with the Shadir Sanders, it was
yes.
All I said in the last episode and towards the end of the last episode was no dramas, just a normal weekend drafting players. But then that happens, so it was a bit of a downer on us in the end. But pick wise, I think we did okay.
Fair.
Should we talk about the Dolphins?
Yes. So it's interesting that you said the Falcons had one of the the least amount of picks in the draft. The Dolphins was the opposite. We had 10 picks to start off with because we had a few comp picks as well, compensatory picks, meaning that so you get a comp pick if one of your top players leaves in free agency and there's a hole basically left without him, so you get a comp pick. So we had 2 in this year's draft. So we started off with 10 picks. Yeah. 2 in the 4th, and I think we had 2 in the 5th as well. Yeah. Anyway, we ended up with 8 players. So we did trade up. We didn't trade up in the 1st, we traded up in the 2nd. So the Dolphins, after free agency, had glaring holes on the roster. Cornerback, defensive tackle, offensive guard. Trenches was the main area of need for the Dolphins. Obviously, we covered the drama with Jalen Ramsey just before the draft. I was expecting the Dolphins, everyone was mocking the Dolphins to get a cornerback potentially in the 1st or at least the 2nd round. But the Dolphins being the Dolphins, they didn't select a cornerback until the 7th round, Guto. And you can imagine what that made to my blood pressure at the point over the weekend. So, however, Chris Greer, our GM, who potentially might be in the last year of his contract, by the way, has said, don't worry, we're going to tap into the 3rd wave of free agency. And they've been in contact with Rasul Douglas, who used to play for the Bills last year, and Stephon Gilmore is the other one that played for the Cowboys. So the problem is, again, we're going for 30 plus in age here. So we didn't draft, and I thought that we were going to draft someone like Jahdae Barron out of Texas or Will Johnson out of Michigan. Will Johnson fell out to the 1st round, but apparently his medical was so bad, all the teams passed up on him until he eventually went to the 2nd round, end of the 2nd round. Apparently his knees are like bone on bone. There's no cartilage there, apparently. It's really, really bad. Anyway, but Jahdae Barron went in the 1st in the end. I can't remember to where. I think he went to the... Oh, no, he didn't go to the Seahawks. Anyway, I'll have to get back on that. Anyway, so we drafted a nose tackle / defensive tackle with our 13th pick of the 1st round in Kenneth Grant out of Michigan. Absolute monster. 340 pounds, 6'4", he played along Mason Graham, by the way, that was drafted by Cleveland in with a fifth pick.
Yeah.
Apparently, a lot of the people are saying that Mason Graham benefited a lot from Kenneth Grant's dirty work. So he takes on the double teams, and then Mason Graham was able to take the one-on-ones, and he was able to beat that to get to the quarterback. So very, very happy with that pick. Second round, we drafted up. We traded up. Sorry, we traded up 10 spots to get an offensive guard, which was a glaring need for the Dolphins. We needed 2. We got one in free agency from the Steelers, James Daniels. So we got a guy from Arizona State named Jonah Savanaya. He is Polynesian. Again, massive guy, over 330 pounds, very, very powerful, excellent in the running game, really, really good in the passing game as well, and a brilliant character as well. That's what we need, Guto. We need strong characters in Miami. A lot has been said about the culture down in Miami is quite toxic, especially with, if you can imagine, what's happening with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Ramsey, which is going to be, he's going to be leaving very, very shortly, we think. Anyway, yeah. I don't think there's going to be a reconciliation. But anyway, cut things short, the Dolphins went very, very trench heavy. They got 3 defensive tackles. One is an absolute steal that I've heard. His name is Jordan Phillips. They got him in the 3rd round. Really, really looking forward to see what he can do. Happy with Kenneth Grant. Really happy that we got one of the top guards in Savanaya as well. One of the steals that I was very, very happy that we got, the Dolphins, a guarantee, Guto, the Dolphins will draft a running back. Total guarantee, because of Mike McDaniel's background as a run coordinator with the San Francisco 49ers. So from the tape that I've seen, the running backs that we have currently in Miami are speedsters, short, not built, not to be a physical back. We drafted our physical back called Ollie Gordon in the 5th round from Texas Tech, I believe. An absolute bulldozer, 225 pounds, 6'2". The Dolphins were rubbish at 3rd and 4th and short. Hopefully, we can hand the ball to him and he can get us our first down. That's exactly what we need. And we need some push from the O-line as well. So overall, a lot of, just to bring this to an end, I'm very, very happy with the trenches, that we filled the holes there. I am concerned that we didn't draft a cornerback. So now that Ramsey's leaving, we're going to have to find 2 starting cornerbacks. And the other one that I wasn't happy about is a lot of people are saying that we traded away our 3rd round pick in order to get our guard in the 2nd round, Jonah Savanaya. However, if he's a starter and if he's a solid starter, I don't care. Like you said, if your player, Pierce, if he's a wrecking ball, you won't care that you've given away your 1st round pick next year. If he's a baller, he's a baller. You've got your guy. So hopefully that's what the Dolphins have done. So there's plenty more work to do for the Dolphins, but overall, I am relatively happy.
That's good. Yeah, and from reading the comments from Dolphins fans online as well, yeah, relatively happy, I think, as well. I would be as well. Obviously, Kenneth Grant, Jonah Savanaya, he looks like a decent player. I've seen clips of Ollie Gordon. Considering he got him so late as well, I think that's a steal as well.
He was 2 years. Sorry, Guto. 2 years ago, he was a finalist for the Heisman Trophy.
All right.
Cool. In 2023. Yeah. But the only reason that he fell out, he was a 1st round prospect. The only reason that he fell to the 5th was because he got a DUI last year.
Good fitting go to the Miami Dolphins, isn't it?
Exactly.
What do you think of
lifestyle down in Miami?
Oh,
yeah.
God, typical. Yeah. What do you think of Quinn Ewers, quarterback? What do you think his situation is?
Meh. If I'm honest with you, a lot of people have said that they basically drafted him because they had a pick to spare in the 7th round. Best case scenario, Guto, that he will fit the system. Apparently, the Texas system, that the college that he went to, is very, very similar to Miami's. And if he turns out to be our backup, because like I think I said at the beginning of the pod, Zach Wilson is on a 1-year contract. We can save a lot of money by having a rookie as our backup. I doubt that it'll happen. I'll be very, very shocked if he will succeed, because I've heard a lot of mixed bag about Quinn Ewers. Hasn't got the best arm. Potentially he's not the most athletic guy either. He had a lot of talent in terms of the wide receiver room in Texas, I think, which potentially made him seem a little bit better than he was. But I haven't seen him play yet. I'm not. That's not going to be one of the things that I'm going to be looking out once OTAs come. Yeah. Mine's going to be what's happening to the O-line, D-line, and what's happening with the cornerbacks as well for the Dolphins.
Well, we were talking about, you were just mentioning earlier quickly about Jedi Barron. You were wondering where he went to. He went to Denver Broncos on 20th.
Yes. Yeah. Again, excellent pick.
Yeah.
Excellent pick.
Brilliant.
But with the best cornerback in the league, Pat Surtain, absolutely brilliant pick.
Yeah, spot on pick, that one. So I've given you my kind of favourite pick, my kind of, not basically winner, but I was a big fan of Tampa Bay. I know the Bills and the Ravens did well as well. They've got some great players as well. But who was your highlight of the draft, or if you have like a specific winner, or
well, do you know what, it kind of shocked me when it first was announced, but I think it's going to work very, very well, and he has the potential to do very, very well in this situation, is Tetairoa McMillan, who went 7th overall to the Carolina Panthers.
Okay.
That's my pick.
Yeah,
a sneaky pick, wide receiver. He's probably going to be either their number one or their close number one behind Adam Thielen. Bryce Young really, really came along towards the second half of the season last year. He finally showed the NFL why he was the number one pick a couple of years ago. I've seen tape of this guy.
Yeah.
Oof. Yeah, he looks really, really, really good. Really, really good from Arizona State. Like I said, I just thought, Guto, he's going into a team where he's going to be one of the top 2 targets. Yeah. He's going to have plenty of ball. I wouldn't be surprised if he would be a contender for Rookie of the Year.
Possibly so. Yeah. Going into a team, I think, will be a lot dangerous than they have been in the last 2 or 3 seasons. Yeah. Obviously, they've not had a great season. The 2 seasons ago, they slightly get a little bit better. So I think this season, and I like the pick, McMillan, wide receiver, a couple of edges as well. I do like it. So I think that the Panthers is here. Our division, apart from the Saints, no offense, is pretty stacked this year on decent picks and players. So it's going to be an interesting division to watch this season. Another wide receiver I want to highlight for you as well. We've mentioned the Bears already. They went for Colson Loveland. I'm a fan of Luther Burden III, who the Bears picked a second. So they've got a tight end the first, wide receiver in the second, Luther Burden III for me. I had him in my mock in the first round. I forgot.
I think all of us had him in the first going in the first round. I think
So I'm surprised that he went late, but I think the Bears really good pick, that one. Really good pick.
Steal. So they've got another first round pick in Roma Dunze as well from last year.
Yeah.
Again, Chicago are building a really, really tidy offense for Caleb Williams there. A lot of options. He's got 2 solid tight ends, and he's got 2 really young, exciting wide receivers as well. So that's a really good point to get, actually. Chicago, 100%. I'm trying to think if another team. Can you look at quickly where safety Nick Emenwari went to? I mocked him to go to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I can't remember where he ended up. I think he went in either the late teens or the early 20s. I can't remember where.
he got picked to the Seattle Seahawks.
Did he?
Yeah.
Okay.
Seattle Seahawks. Yeah.
Talking of the Seahawks, I think they got us. I think I'm very, very. Do you remember Johan talking about the steal of the draft was Gray Zabel,
Yeah.
the offensive lineman out of North Dakota State. He ended up going to the Seattle Seahawks. That's a brilliant pick. I was kind of when he fell to us at 13. I really hoped that the Dolphins were going to take him.
Yeah.
Pick number 13, but they ended up going defense instead. But yeah, obviously brilliant pick there.
Speaking of Seahawks,
yes.
I'm interested with their pick in the third round, Jalen Milroe, quarterback.
Yeah, interesting.
That's a really interesting pick, I think. They've got what's his name, the new quarterback from
Darnold.
That's the one. So yeah, they've got Jalen Milroe. I'm a big fan of Milroe. Milroe and Dart went to the Giants as well.
Yeah.
I'm just looking at the quarterback. So yeah, very interesting.
Dart was picked before Shadeur as well.
Yeah, absolutely crazy. I had Dart going to New Orleans, to be honest with you. So
yeah, do you know what? A lot talking of the NFC South, like you said, I think Carolina, Tampa, and Falcons had really, really solid drafts. Everyone is slating the Saints.
Yeah.
In terms of their draft.
Yeah, unbelievable.
Who did they end up picking at number 9?
Calvin Banks Jr. Tackle from Texas.
Okay. Yeah, fair enough.
And they've gone for quarterback Tyler Sow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to get Mr. Canan Arnold back on the pod to see how what he thinks of the Saints draft, because I've seen, obviously it's way too early to say, and I don't know how these NFL insiders come up with, they grade each team.
Yeah.
So I've seen everyone has, A, B's, some of them have C pluses, whatever. A lot of people have given the New Orleans Saints a D. It's that bad.
Yeah. No.
So
it's not. Yeah. I don't think it's going to be a good season for the Saints, to be honest with you. I know it's early to tell, but I think they'll have a pretty rough season, and they're going to have to prove a lot of people wrong. Some say that they'll be the number 1 pick next season.
Potentially, we're going to see Spencer Rattler start as their QB.
Yeah.
Depending on, because the talk of the town is that Derek Carr is potentially going to be out for the season with a shoulder injury.
Yeah. So, yeah, definitely, it'll be interesting to see what's going to happen. At least they've got draft pick Tyler Sow as a backup, I guess, for the Saints. We'll see what happens. It'll be interesting. I think
no wide receivers apart from Chris Olave. They have no wide receivers in New Orleans as well.
They had options. They had options, didn't they? They had some. It was probably the top need as well, I think, wide receiver. So
yeah, 100%.
They had options, 100%. Didn't they? So but unless it doesn't fit the scheme, then who knows?
Who knows, Guitar? Yeah. Well, there we are. I think we've covered everything there.
Yeah. Overall, good draft pick. Overall, good draft pick.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. So that kind of is the end of the of kind of like the big stepping stones towards the beginning of next season. Obviously, we had free agency, we've had the draft, so now is the horrible wait until OTAs start. I know that we're going to have the schedule coming out very, very shortly.
Yep, I was just going to bring it up. That's my favourite time of year, that is, the schedule release. This is where you get to plan where you're going to go. So, May 14th is the schedule release. I'm counting down to that one.
Brilliant. I can't wait. Personally, I can't wait to see who the Dolphins are going to be playing in Madrid.
Yeah.
Apparently, it's going to be either the Bengals or the Commanders. I'd be happy with either, if I'm honest with you.
Yeah.
And I'd give an arm and a leg to go to the Bernabeu to see the Dolphins play there.
Yeah,
that's going to be really good, really interesting.
I'm interested to see who's going to play in Ireland. Obviously, we knew different teams in London. Yeah. Rumours that the Falcons will be the away team against the Colts in Berlin, but we'll see.
Cool.
We'll wait and see. So
That's a nice trip.
yeah,
Away trip to Berlin. Very
but
nice.
yeah, but we'll wait and see. Yeah, I'm looking forward to see who's going to play in London as well. So yeah,
Awesome.
it's my favourite time of the year. You get to plan everything.
Lovely.
You get to look forward to it. So
Cool.
yeah, that's the next one.
So we'll probably in the next episode, in the next couple of days or two, we'll probably get Johan's view of the Eagles draft.
Yeah.
And then we will build towards the schedule, obviously, and then obviously after we gather some more information, when kind of like we have time to go in depth about these players, maybe we can kind of come back on here and give the listeners a more in-depth kind of breakdown of who we've drafted, and who we really think is going to stand out, or where the camp battles are going to be, perhaps. And another thing that we haven't done, Gito, by the way, that we need to do is we haven't done the divisional rankings, have we?
Yes.
So we need to do that. That's another thing that we can do. So we got plenty of things to do from between now and the start of OTAs in June, and then going into training camp in July. So yeah, plenty to do, and like I said, if you're a disgruntled fan, if you're happy with how your team done in terms of their draft picks, let us know. We're more than we're always looking for people to come on and kind of like share their story, new contributors. That's why we're having Johan and other people like Kanan coming back on as well. Maybe we'll kind of tap in to see if Christy is really happy with what the Bucks have done. I should imagine that she's relatively happy, because like you said, they seem to be one of the winners coming after the draft.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to have other people's point of view. But for now, Gito, thank you very much for your time. Glad that you enjoyed your trip to Italy.
Thank you.
Hopefully, me and my wife will be going to Italy in July, just before the start of training camp.
Lovely.
So yeah, we'll see anyway. But for the time being, that was our draft preview, post draft rather recap, and hopefully you've enjoyed. We will be back with you on the NFL Cymru podcast very, very shortly. But for now, take care. See you soon.
Diolch yn fawr.